Hi everyone, my name is Alexandr Korol and I'm a writer. Recently, I published a book called Alternative History. It's a first-person novel and I've now published the second volume. The second volume ends at the moment where I solved the matrix. Somebody calls it the throne of God. Somebody calls it the philosopher's stone. I've devoted many years to research, and now I want to demonstrate to you what it is, just in a nutshell, so that after watching this video, you might get interested in reading my novel, the first and the second volumes. Those two volumes have a complete history of how I solved this matrix. Let's see, what do I have now? I have these papers here. So here, I have a small treatise. It's an excerpt from the Alternative History book. I called it New Heaven and New Earth. I will be going through these pages that I've printed, referring to some materials in it, and telling you about it in detail. It's just easier to explain everything in a video rather than if you read it on your own in the book. So, let's begin. I often pondered on the question why, in the Bible, especially in Revelation of John the Apostle, do they mention 7 lamps, 7 spirits, and 7 churches a lot? There is also a Jewish candelabrum, known as the menorah. It holds 7 candles as well. I also looked through quite a few illustrations made for Revelation of John the Apostle. There is an artist Dürer who made engravings, and he had depicted a throne, some elders, and other things, and among them there are 7 lamps. Sometimes there are 7 lamps around him, above him, above one sitting on the throne. Sometimes it's depicted as 3 lamps on one side and one on the other. But they all showed something like this. So I've illustrated it similarly. But I hypothesized, ever since I was a child, I felt it, that there was some kind of hidden code in everything and everywhere. I thought that cities were not built randomly. All distances between churches and palaces are very particular, especially in my hometown, St. Petersburg. And another thing I've always wondered about was that there are 12 month and 12 zodiac signs. Both can be divided into 4 groups, 4 elements, and 4 seasons. Why are there 24 hours? It's 12 hours on one side and 12 hours on the other side, the light and the dark sides. And why is there such coincidence in the Bible? And in Revelation of John the Apostle, Apocalypse, 24 elders are mentioned. And I thought to myself, similar to 24 hours, could they be connected? Could it be the same? So when I was in spirit, I sat in the corner of my room and saw that if my room is, let's say, a cube or a rectangle, but okay, let's say it's a cube, then one corner is occupied by me, and there are 3 corners next to me on the bottom where I sit, and there are 4 corners above me, and I'm in the 8th corner. So I quickly got back to all those illustrations from Revelation of John the Apostle to check what it all looked like in the pictures. And I see that there are those 7 lamps, but there is light coming from his head as well, as if he was a lamp too. And that's when it dawned on me that one sitting on the throne is manifested in one of the 8 corners. Of course, the realization wasn't that sudden, or that realization so easily came to me when I sat in the corner. Of course, I studied what are the 7 corners, the 7 planets, how light disperses, and how white light disperses into 7 colors. So I've put in quite a lot of effort studying it. Let's move on. Since I realize the one sitting and the throne described in the Revelation of John the Apostle, and not only in John, but there is Ezekiel. And so I know that there is some sort of confirmation that it should be a rectangle or a cube. And so I have found in Revelation of John the Apostle, there is a new city, and its height, length, and width are equal. And I thought, bingo, that's a cube. So it means that he manifests himself in one of the 8 corners, and that's why there are 7 lamps around him. He is the 8th. He is the 8th. Here I can show it to you. So here are the 7 lamps, and his head, the 8th one, glows. Here's another one. Here you can see how they depict the elders. There are 7 lamps beneath his feet, as you can see. Another common feature is all those cherubs or seraphs around him, 4 animals. That's quite popular imagery as well. I found all this as well. So when they describe a new city or a throne or something like that in heaven, well, they usually call it the new city. It says that there are 3 on one side, 3 on the other, so there are 3 gates for every cardinal direction. It's very curious. Again, we see the number 4 as a group, like 4 elements, 4 seasons, and 3s as 3 months in a season, for example. It got me thinking that it must be represented on the cube somehow. Then I concluded, okay, here's another one. So you can see his head glows, and there are the lamps. 3 on one side, 4 on the other. Another interesting depiction. There are 24 elders. Here he's sitting. Here are the lamps, and there are also animals. Here I have started to explain. Here is the throne. It's an illustration I made for my book. I'm explaining here that it's a throne, but later on gave a hint that one should look at it from the correct angle. And the Spirit kept giving me hints to look for the correct angle. And I've tried to turn the cube this way and that way, looking for the correct angle, not looking at the sides of the cube, but at the corners. And in the plane, it will look like a hexagon. It's also very curious. What's next? Then I remember that I came across quite a few icons with a triangle, and I thought maybe he's sitting in the corner. Later on, I figured out why the triangle is there. But what made me curious next is that in the Bible, Ezekiel also describes something. Let's call it the throne or the throne of God. in which someone appears. And he describes it as around the throne, it's guarded by cherubs on 4 cardinal directions. And these cherubs have 4 wings each. If we refer to the exact words, and you have to check the exact words, it said that 2 wings spread out upward, each wing touching that of the creature on either side, and each had 2 other wings covering its body. Another curious thing is that you can read about in the Bible, and you see in some icons is sometimes there are 6 wings, not 4. I have found 4 and 6, and I have found their faces as well. And Ezekiel describes a kind of machine that God arrives in. And it is the throne, and he is sitting on it. The throne is guarded by the cherubs, and there are wheels near these cherubs depicted as well. Then when I was in spirit, I started to figure it all out. And here's what cherubs or angels, seraphs look like. In case somebody doesn't understand, let's not mince words. The essence is the same. What's next? I was thinking, if we look at the throne in Christianity, in Orthodoxy, it is depicted as a cube. And it got me thinking, if all this is sacred geometry, and all this is concealed, and if the cube is a throne, and if it's guarded by these angels, then one has to draw lines correctly to get wings. Wings. And here is one of my illustrations. I am just looking at one of the flat sides of the cube. It's a square, and I divide it into 2 parts, drawing a line from one corner to another, diagonally. And so we get 2 wings here. And so we get 2 wings here. To make it clearer, I'm going to show you a model, a 3D model. Never mind that it's unfinished. It's a model I want to use to demonstrate something. So, we have a square, and I draw crosswise here. I guess it's hard to see now, but the point is that I drew lines. Now, how shall I give you a better view of these lines? It's not easy, maybe this one is better. The lines are thicker here. Okay, it's fine here. Do you see the square in the plane? And there are rays going this way, and here's this way. When I did it crosswise on all sides, I saw what Ezekiel was describing. I started looking at the cube, not as a flat object, but in different planes. I just showed you a few planes, but you should be looking at the corner here. I saw how this line cuts the top into 2 wings, the left one and the right one. And below, we have another side here and there. It cuts the plane here. And we get wings as well. And it says that 2 wings point upwards and touch together, provided we look at the model correctly. You can't see it. How shall I show you? How shall I show you? I have some illustrations here. It will make more sense. I've been working on this project for a while. Okay, look, we have a square, and if we cut it into 2 like this is one wing, and this is the other. Only you're supposed to be looking at the cube for an angle, not when it's flat like this. But this way, here's the first wing, the right one, and here's the left one. Here's they touch each other. They should be at the top. And if we look at the shapes of the cube and imagine the corner here, we will see a lower wing covering the body. That's where all these wings are. Okay, let's get back to the shape. So this shape, here it is. Let's see the corner, and now you should be able to make them out better. Here is one upper wing, and here's the other. And now the ones below, do you see? Like a triangle covering the body. If you rotate this thing, I could depict the wings on all sides of the cube. The wings. So what we have is a cube, and there are four sides, the top and the bottom. And when I looked at the throne like this, not as a flat plane, not like this, but from under the corner, so that it appeared like six-pointed star. Then after I did the sides, I took into account the top and the sides. And there were no wings at the bottom at this point. But as I carefully read with Ezekiel, he said that these animals, cherubs or seraphs, angels, had four arms under either wing. Under either wing. That's as far as the upper wings are connected, and there are four legs under either lower wing, resembling bull's legs, gleamed like burnished bronze. I found all that too, so it appears I covered all four sides of the cube to the top and the bottom, because I depicted pretty much the same things at the bottom. Since we have the bull's legs here, I'll show it to you right now in the book. Hold on. In essence, so you understand, if you look at the cube this way and draw lines on all the sides from one corner to another diagonally, that's the way we represent all the cherub's wings. That's how we get two tetradrans in the cube. That's very important. I also get the same when looking under each wing. I draw more lines and thus get a ROM inside the cube. How did that come about? So we have this model. Let's say we have two wings here. I would draw a line under another wing, then another one, and yet another. With all the arms and legs drawn under the wings, I get a ROM. So I got a ROM inside. Here we have a cube with all those interesting lines. Next, I looked at it from the correct angle. So you see a triangle here. Here, and here a triangle, you see? And this triangle is pretty much what I took as the base to make the circle. It's a wheel. So I went this way and got all those wheels for the cherubs. It's quite fascinating. It says here, if we see, it might see that if we see, well, that's Ezekiel says, that if we see, hold on a second, it's difficult to synchronize with the camera. If we look at the triangle with the tip pointing downwards, like this, and there are all those smaller ones, right? It's because I went on to make the arms and legs under the wings. There's also a tiny triangle with a tip pointing upwards. Can you see it? and big one on the tip of the pointing downwards. All these are faces, faces of animals and cherubs. And so this one is the face of a lion and a human. It's when the triangle is pointing downwards, this point and this point. And if we look at the cube here, here, and here, you see? So that's the face of a lion and a face of a human. Then it says in Ezekiel work that if you turn into the right or left, he says something like that, so you turn it and see another face. Here, with the tip pointing upwards, we get a bull's face. And if we get a closer look, it's an eagle. So there are 4 animals. But that's just for starters. Next. Okay, I can show you how I was looking for the wings. If you look at it on a flat plane, looking at a flat side, I can see one wing, and I realize that's how I'm supposed to draw lines to get arms. I did in that way to get arms and legs on all sides of the cube. Okay, next. That's how I rotated and depicted wheels around the cherubs. And also Ezekiel says they could move and rise. Why? Because we can see a propeller blade. And also we can see the wheels. Here. You see? So we have wheels and blades. One can say it's far-fetched, and I could be fudging it. But then the Spirit showed me how it all can be proved. We'll get there now. So what's next? Next it says that the cherubs are full of eyes all around. I found it to be there too. It's because we have these big triangles, tetrahedrons, and they came to contain the little triangles on all sides, and these are none other than the eyes. Next, and they are everywhere, in the front and the back, because you're supposed to look at this matrix from the correct angle, so that you see the flat plane, and then all the layers and the portion at the rear side. You realize it, don't you? There is the blade at the front here. The one at the back is pointing in the opposite direction. There is a blade here, and here as well. It's like a real concealed flower of life, only in real dimension. It came to be quiet by itself here. What's next? And also we can get back to the revelation of John the Apostle, where it says that the new city has 3 gates. So where are they? It's very simple. Let's look. Very important to look at the correct angle. You're supposed to look at the matrix like this. If you do, well, it's not easy to show in the video. What shall I do to make it clear? Maybe this one will demonstrate better. Yes, this one's better. Here you can see the cube, and we can see its 3 sides. If you look from the corner, it's the one, this and this. These are the 3 gates. If I were to remove the other lines here, that's what you would see, squares positioned crosswise. So you rotate it like this, and look. Look at the corner from every cardinal direction and see the 3 gates. Next. And the Spirit, when I was in spirit, he showed me that when I looked at some icons, I found it all. Here is an icon, the Trinity. Do you understand what can we see? Here's in the matrix, inside a cube. And here's the corner, human features. You see? There's the triangle. There's the triangle with a tip downwards. Here's a point, and here's the tip looking down. That's it. And he's here, you see? Now, here's another icon. He's in the same place, his manifestation. I saw it afterwards. It proves I've made the matrix correctly. I could have put the lines every which way, but when I made it, I started to look at every icon and see every side of my matrix. This might be familiar. Often you get in search results when you Google, what is the Trinity? The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. I figured out what the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost are. The Father is in the future, the Son is in the present, and the Holy Ghost is His manifestation from the future. It's time. It's time. You can also add the following. If it's geometric shape, then when God created Adam and created Eve out of his rib, perhaps what's meant in the edge of a geometric shape, it could be a rib. Okay. What can we see next? We can also see... Okay, here. Another curious thing. So I made the wheels. How do I know if I made them correctly? And then I see this. Do you see this almond shape? And I remembered seeing it on icons a lot. But there's another interesting point. When I look at it and I realize there's an icon like this. It's not like I simply found an almond-like shape with a figure inside, but even the intersecting lines are the same if you look at it as if it were flat. These intersecting lines are the same, and he manifests in this almond shape. Then I have this. It's known as the mandorla. It's what I found in my matrix. Then I remembered that often he is sitting on some sort of arc or a rainbow or a canopy. It's a common enough image. You see? The manifestation. Have a look. Do you see what he's sitting on? Interesting, isn't it? Well, I found it in the matrix as well. Do you know where it is? Where he's sitting? Now, what side shall I show you so that you see? No, not like this. I'll show you like this. So, if you were sitting inside, facing me, and when he's back to you, then he'd be sitting on this thing here. Here, this one. And the most interesting thing here is that the lower arc is the Mother of God. Just a moment. Here we go. Then I found this icon and realized I had it in my matrix too. It's not when you're looking from under the corner seeing these three sides. You're supposed to see just two sides, the upper and lower ones like this. Can you see the manifestations? And it's the same. And it's not all the lines are finished here, admittedly, but to show you this, I'm showing you the stages of the matrix. But when it forms, a lot of other things form as well. You'll just not be able to see it. You see, there is a tiny branch inside, a twig, a tree, a trunk. And these are fruits of heaven, bodies. So it grew, the burning bush, if you know this icon. Ah, here. It's what I've just been showing to you. They're here, it's all manifestations on the background of the matrix. On different sides. And I've already shown you the flower of life, haven't I? There's a propeller blade and another one on the back looking the other way. And if you look through, it's the real flower of life. So what else can we see here? It also says in Revelation of John the Apostle that there are 24 thrones. There are none here yet, but the line's completed here. We get 24 thrones in the cube. There are similar cubes. Can you see it? With a number of its sides being 6, and it's the way you're supposed to look at it. I explain it this way in my book, Alternative History. Then we have 6 sides with 4 smaller squares on each. 6 times 4, 24. So what do you get? 24 thrones. And if we finish the details inside, we'll get 24 elders with wreaths. And can you see? If we look from the corner angle, there are 12 in light within our scope of vision now, as we have 12 zodiac signs and 12 hours, and 12 on the other side. So 24 elders. But there is another interesting detail. In Revelation of John the Apostle, chapter 4 and 21, it says that there are 24 thrones around the throne. And there is the throne here as well, in the center. But do you know what is the paradoxical thing? I did find it, but it was very difficult to do. And it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same size as the little squares here. It was different. In the golden ratio, the small cube is inside the big cube. And when I succeeded, and it became the size of 1.6, I saw it. It was a tesseract, the 4th dimension, a hypercube. And so this hypercube is made up of the corners of one of the 24 thrones. The 8th corner of each throne was taken. And that's how the tesseract was made by the golden ratio. And that the small cube equals to the big one. That's what I explain in my book. What's here is what's above, and where is it that we live in actually. And this is the throne of God. And it contains all geometrical shapes, all of them. All of them. When we have 12 pentagonal sides, this shape is also referred as ether. It is also formed here because of the wheels. There are the rest of the Platonic solids here. So there are all the regular polyhedrons here. And it is all by the golden ratio, with one shape forming another, and there is even the flower of life. And I didn't try to adapt it anyhow. But when I was in spirit, and read the Evangelists carefully, thoroughly, step by step, I simply depicted it. Not the white-bearded elders on chairs, but in this way, I see it this way. Like this. I hope it will be interesting for you to read the 2 volumes of my alternative history. There's a step-by-step instruction and story on how I got here and what is the thing in my hand. Goodbye, everyone.